Hello and welcome to the Jim Kleiber Show. A few minutes late seems to be the pattern this week. It is Thursday, November 5th, 2020. It's almost the weekend and the election is still going on. People are still trying to figure out who won the election. It almost seems as if the election is a good distraction for many of us. Just like sports, it's actually quite similar to sports. Often we're watching the screen, rooting for our team, not sure when the game's going to end, how much time is left. We see one team pull ahead and the other team pull ahead, and we're rooting and we're getting angry that the other team may win, and we're getting worried that we may lose. And the news isn't talking about really anything else. It's not talking about the coronavirus. It's not talking about all the death and loss of jobs that we're facing. And it's really struggling. It's just focused on the game, the main distraction for some of us. Very side comment. Someone asked Big Mac or Whopper, and I don't eat either. So probably spicy chicken sandwich I would go with. The essence of a live conversation where people chime in and you don't know who they are. No, not a big fast food guy. But if I did, it would be probably spicy chicken sandwich. I think it's been welcome for a lot of us. I think, this incessant coverage on the coronavirus, I think it's important for us to understand what the struggles are, where the challenges are, where, the cases are rising, and to be aware of that. And I think sometimes we just need a break. I think it's ironic that politics could be the break from that, because we've had incessant political coverage over the last couple months on TV, on ads, on the internet, just kind of being overwhelmed with it. But maybe it just means it's a very, very long game, and we're in the final seconds of the game trying to see who wins. A lot of times, depending on the sport, it's not so fun to watch until the end. I think basketball, basketball is back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And yeah, there's some good plays here and there, but the last few minutes, that's when all the excitement comes. And so I think we're in the last few minutes, the last few seconds of this political game, and many of us are queuing in, watching. And it's okay. It's okay. I think sometimes I can say it and other people can say, no, we need to focus on what we're doing. But, sometimes we need distractions. Sometimes we need to just take our mind off something and focus on something else. Sometimes we just need to watch a cartoon or go for a walk or play a ridiculous game or just do something else. They talk about it with, I think it's, what's that thing? The tip of the tongue phenomenon. I think that's what it is. Where you're trying to remember something and it's like at the tip of your tongue. Oh, what is that? I think I got it. Oh, what? They say one of the best ways to actually remember it is to just go do something else. And then it's likely that it'll, trigger or surface in your brain. So sometimes I think we just need to take our minds off things and go do other things. Yep, but at the same time, when we do that too much, we can avoid the conflict more indefinitely, and then it just keeps festering. Like we can pretend that the coronavirus doesn't exist, or but it's still there. Friend, somebody says another way to get distracted is to listen or dance to music. Hey, man. That was one of my main distractions. I could still do it here. It just doesn't feel as fun as going out to a club or going out to a place where there are other people listening to music and other people dancing, or a concert. I love those distractions. I miss that, man. Something about dancing in the same house that I've been for 8 months straight doesn't feel as much of a distraction, but it still is. I still enjoy it. And I think it's easy for me to get caught up in what's going on in politics or what's going on with the news and forget about how much I love music. So for all you out there, there's still a lot of music, and there's a lot of music on the internet, and a lot of it's for free now with YouTube. But if you got like a Spotify subscription or Apple Music subscription, you can get access to so many different types of music. And yeah, just dance or really listen to the lyrics. It's one thing that I don't do very often. There are plenty of people who do, but for some reason, I almost always listen to the beats and don't hear the lyrics too much. But I've realized listening to the lyrics can speak so much to our souls. It's just, some of these lyrics are deep, man. Think about it. We don't have a lot of poetry in our society anymore. A lot of the poetry, I think, has gone into musical form. And really listening to some of these words can help us process the stuff we're going through and not seem like we're processing or doing work. It's a way for us to feel stuff without trying to feel stuff. Like watching a movie. Sometimes watching a movie or watching even cartoons. Like I said, cartoons can help us get through some stuff too, and in a more indirect way. It's not the typical let's go sit and talk it out on a couch caricature of how to process emotions. It's arguably a much more natural human way to do it, is to just get out there and dance and to sweat and to get into a rhythm of the song and a rhythm of the lyrics and really feel it that way. Yeah. And that's the thing, if we don't bond with someone over political beliefs and all we talk about are politics, then we're not going to bond with the person. But say, for example, we have the political beliefs where we disconnect. But if we connect with regards to music, if we connect with regards to some type of sport, if we connect with regards to some type of hobby or fashion or something like that, boom, we're connected on 3 levels. So even if the top parts don't connect, we're still connected. It can help make our connection even stronger. So if we really want to connect with other people, we want to have good relationships with people, trying to connect all the time on the one thing that we don't connect on is a struggle. We may just bash our heads against each other all the time. But finding the other avenues and talking about the other things and having the other channels of connection can really help forge the relationship. Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to just sit. Sometimes I don't know what to talk about. So if anyone's out there listening and they want certain topic to talk about, I would love for the input. Otherwise, I'll just sit here and ramble on a bit. Let's see what else we got going on. I wonder if people have been writing a lot of music right now. Oh, thank you for the beard compliment. Thank you. It's quite fluffy. It's feels like a lion's mane. I can actually puff it up a little bit. I wonder if there have been a lot of music that people are writing nowadays. I would hope so. I mean, this is the time when so much is going on emotionally that I would hope that some of the best singers and songwriters, and even some of the bad singers and songwriters, are putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and coming up with some new lyrics and some new beats to help us remember the time, to help us process the time. I know Dave Matthews came up with a song, I think it's called like Singing from the Windows, and he performed it at I think the first live concert that he held, way back in the beginning of this pandemic, he held a live concert online. I think it was sponsored by Verizon or someone. And I think it was trying to talk about people singing from the windows in New York or in Italy, and this idea that they were locked up and during the quarantine, and cheering for the healthcare workers that were out there, and just that we're going to get through this. It's like, where are those songs, man? Where are the new songs? Come on. Can we have new songs? Like, we need some new songs of this time period. Question: in your conversations with other whites, primarily Trump supporters, how have you gauged your talks with them from the standpoint of racial justice and empathy? Oh, what I noticed, I'll just say what I noticed, especially with what happened with George Floyd, is that a lot of people were very taken aback. I think what happened with George Floyd was the almost epitome and like the of someone not fighting back, of nonviolence. Here's a man who is not fighting back at all, and still one side is being very violent towards him. And I think so many white people said, what the hell is happening? Because there wasn't a lot of room for going, whoa, but the other side was fighting back. It was just obvious the one side was not fighting back and the other side was fighting. So I think that was a key moment for a lot of people in just opening up to this more. In my particular conversations, especially people who are Trump supporters, I often don't talk about it directly. Not because I don't think it's an issue. I just don't think I don't think it's what they're struggling with. And I honestly believe that they support someone like Donald Trump because of what they're struggling with, not what they think other people are struggling with. And I don't mean to say that in a demeaning way. In a lot of conversations, if anything about race can come up sometimes, it's the knee-jerk, I'm not racist, or I'm not a white supremacist, or I'm not. And so I'm really hesitant sometimes to go directly into that conversation because it can really spiral into the distancing. I think I'm trying to get better at talking to them about what they're struggling with, not about what other people are struggling with, if that makes any sense. But even then, like when I say it towards people who are Trump supporters, I'm saying that when I'm talking to people in general. When I talk to people who are, active in the Black Lives Matter movement, or people who are active in many different things, I'm trying to get much better at talking to them about what they're struggling with, not trying to tell them that other people are struggling. Because I think one of the hardest parts is if somebody, say, for example, I'm struggling deeply with financial issues, and someone comes up to me and says, hey, but these people in X country are struggling. It's like, yeah, they're struggling, but I'm struggling too. Are you ignoring my struggle? Do you not see how much pain I'm going through right now? And so I think when we're going through pain, it can be really hard to not only see the pain of others, but to think that their pain is more important than my pain. And I'm not saying this to defend the actions that many people have taken towards Black people in this country. It's just, I remember, so I was living in Oakland, and someone started a class, and it was basically trying to teach white people how to not be racist. And I went to it once, and then when I was asking, why did they start it? They said, well, basically a lot of our Black friends think that this needs to exist, and we're going to start it. And I'm like, the problem is if we could help white people deal with the fears and the struggles and the worries and the anxieties and all this stuff that white people are dealing with, the white people aren't going to be racist anymore. Like, a lot of it is fear of Black people, or fear of immigrants, or fear of losing my job, or fear of losing my wife, or fear of losing this or losing that. It's a lot of just fear in general, fear of terrorists, fear of et cetera, et cetera. So helping white people and just people in general deal with our own struggles, help us be more emotionally healthy, I think can help how we interact with other people. And this is where I personally get caught up when there's kind of like this strong kind of distrust and divide between communities, black communities and people in the police community. And it's like, whoa, don't you both realize that you're both struggling a lot with gun violence and a lot with deep, deep traumas? Like deep traumas. Y'all are struggling. I'm not saying that I'm not. I'm just saying that, gosh, I can't imagine what it's like to be in either position, to be a parent of a black child and have to talk to them about how dangerous it is to interact with a cop, or to be a spouse of a cop and think and be so afraid that the spouse may not come home at night because they're dealing with gun violence on a daily basis. It's just, I can't. The fear of losing someone to gun violence, I think, is prevalent on both sides of that equation. And I think what so often happens is we come in and we say, oh, but you don't see my pain. And the other person says, but you don't see my pain. And they say, oh, but your pain doesn't matter because my pain is bigger. Oh, no, your pain doesn't matter because my pain is bigger. Man, we are all struggling in different ways, and often very, very similar ways. I just talked to a friend yesterday who said, we haven't talked in 3 months. And he says, yeah, man, since we last talked, I've lost 5 people, 2 people to coronavirus. It's 3 months, man. So a lot of us are going through stuff that we just don't talk about. I think a lot of people in the white community don't recognize the fear of being a black person, not only from, the fear, the pain too, of interacting with the police and not trusting the police. These are people that we pay, that are part of the government, that are supposed to be the people who protect us the most, and to not trust them, and just not trust them, but to think that they may end up killing you. Terrifying and sad, and it can instill a sense of hopelessness in society. But it's not just with the police officers. It's walking down the street and people crossing the street because people are afraid. It hurts to think that other people are afraid of me. I haven't felt that as a white man in that scenario, but I felt it as a man walking down the street, and then a woman speeds up or crosses the street, and I go, will she think I'm going to like rape her? Or she think I'm going to attack her? What is she, and it hurts so much to think that other people might be afraid of me. Does that mean I'm a bad person? Does that mean I'm trying to do something to harm them? Do they think I have bad intentions? Do I have bad intentions? What's wrong with me? Ooh, so it can really spiral really fast. So I think a lot of white people don't recognize what that's like, or quickly connect how they've gone through something similar and how painful that might be. And I think a lot of people in the black community don't recognize how terrifying it might be to be a cop, right? And I remember reading something about a police officer says, he's like, imagine going, from a motorcycle accident where somebody just died and it was a very bloody accident, to going to some guy's house where the guy just committed suicide, and you have to tell his, 7-year-old son what happened while the guy is, basically his guts are everywhere. And then you have to go home to your wife or your husband or your partner or whatnot. Right? And pretend like everything is fine and have a conversation, or go out to a birthday party for someone and try to be present and aware. It's just, and I think what happened in this election is just that there's so many of us that are struggling with our own things that we've become so blinded to how other people are struggling as well. So many of us who are so angry, so afraid, so sad that Trump is president, that we are, and so frustrated that this virus situation is going on, or so frustrated that this racial injustice is going on, the police brutality, so frustrated and powerless and helpless in so many ways, that we forget there's a good, a large chunk of society that is feeling similar feelings, but for something else, for losing their job, for losing their relative to opioid overdose, to losing a friend to suicide, to losing to losing their business, to losing their house. Like, and I think what we get into is we go, oh, but losing a house is not as bad as losing a life, or having somebody attack their business is not as bad as being physically attacked, or this and that. And it comes, what do they call it? It's kind of like the oppression Olympics. It's, I don't know, it's this idea that we fight over, like, but the cause of the pain is bigger or smaller. So therefore, I'm struggling more. It's like, nah, some people, like, what we feel, we feel. And if somebody could be feeling absolute terror when they see a spider, and you go, oh, it's just a spider, it's not a big deal. But to that person, that terror feels real. It doesn't matter that it's just a spider, or it's just heights, or something that causes the phobias. It feels very, very real. And so to come in and tell that person, oh, no, oh, why are you so worried about that? What's wrong with you? It's like, well, they're worried about it because they're worried about it. And when we discount their emotions and their feelings, it sure doesn't help us have a better relationship with them. And they may start distrusting us and say, well, you don't understand me. You don't know who I am. And it could lead this person down a pretty dark path of loneliness, a dark spiral. And when I say this person, it's me too, man. Like, I've struggled with things over the years, like, and I don't talk about it so much, like, I think I get so angry when people talk about, oh, we need to open up society. We need to do this. It's like, man, I've been here for 8 months being as absolutely careful as possible, because if I get the virus and I gave it to my mom when she was going through chemotherapy, she had very little chance, from what I understand. And I can't even imagine how guilty I would feel if I did that. So I really haven't had human contact with people outside of my parents in this house for 8 months in person, because I'm scared, man. I'm scared. And so when somebody says, oh, it's not a big deal, oh, like, oh, come on, it's just a little virus, I'm like, you don't understand the fear that I feel. And I think so many other people, and myself as well, we can get so wrapped up in our fears and in the anger that we feel, and the frustration and the sadness, that we don't see how other people are feeling it for other things. We don't talk about emotions a lot in this country. Frankly, we don't talk about emotions a lot in the world. We don't show how we're feeling. We don't talk about the fears. I may say that my mom was going through cancer, was going through chemo, but I don't talk about the sleepless nights that I've had because of it, and how many dreams I've had, nightmares rather, where I go to a party and I'm having a great time, and then, 3/4 of the way through the party, I realize I'm not wearing a mask, and other people have been really close to me, and I freak out, and I run away, and I wake up like shaken. And so I think a lot of us are having a lot of fears and nightmares, and even dreams that other people just don't recognize, because we're caught up in our own dreams, our own nightmares, and we just don't know it. So a long answer to that question, and I appreciate that question. Maybe I should do this more often, ask people for questions, what I should talk about. So I want to get better at asking people who are Trump, or who supported Trump, or who voted for Trump, what they're struggling with, or what they dream. Really try to connect with them better on an emotional level, instead of my knee-jerk reaction of just getting very, very angry and very condescending. I can be very condescending. Why would you support such an idiot? I can't believe you. This is so stupid. I mean, that's a lot of my reaction, instead of going, why does this person support them? And what are they feeling? What are they going through in their life? What makes them excited? What makes them confused? What makes them terrified? What makes them want to cry for a week? And it can be really scary sometimes to get into those conversations, but it can feel really nice too, and relieving to know that they're just another human, struggling through this world, not knowing what they're doing and being preoccupied with the thoughts in their head and the sensations in their body, and not really knowing what other people are going through. So I hope that answered the question a little bit. I don't know if you're still on the line listening, but I appreciate you asking that question, Kalima. Yeah. I think we all have our own, we're all struggling with things. And I just said struggling with things, not our own struggles, because I don't know if we own these situations. I think a lot of it's just the stuff that we're going through and the things that we're feeling related to it. And I think it's easy for me to discount the feelings of other people because I look at the thing that's causing the feelings for them and I don't feel the same thing. So I look at what's going on with the election right now and the vote counting, and I feel frustrated that there's people on the Trump side are saying that it's stealing votes and, oh, this is fraud, this is rigged. I feel very frustrated with that. But I can imagine some of them feel terror and feel deep fear of what it might be under like a Biden administration. And as much as I don't feel that, I also don't want to discount their feelings, if that makes sense. Another question coming in. In your work around emotional intelligence and empathy, have you come across antipathy or even those who are blocked emotionally, especially in dating and relationships? Oh, yeah. I mean, are you I guess just to ask a follow-up question to you, are you talking about like academically or intellectually in some of the research, or more kind of personal anecdotes and stories? There's been some research that I found on it. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So I think there's a few things. I mean, there's love, there's hatred, and there's indifference. I think that's empathy or whatever is toward, like, connection with someone. Antipathy is kind of being hatred towards someone. And then you have apathy, where people just get disconnected from each other. Have I seen it in dating and relationships? Oh, yeah, all the time. And often it's coming from previous experiences we've had in life. So, for example, and I don't mean this in any harm, but a lot of times the examples I use are heterosexual examples, man-woman relationships. If people are not okay with that, I'm sorry. It's the one I'm more familiar with. I'll try to use other examples, but in dating and relationships, I think a lot of times we get burned, we get betrayed. So, for example, I met a woman who was in a relationship and she was in love with the guy and they were thinking about getting married, and the guy cheated on her. And she seems to have strong distrust toward men in general. So being very careful, or thinking, oh, if he stays out a little too late, he must be cheating on me, or he doesn't care about me at all. And yeah, so there's that kind of distrust and anger, or just really suspicion and skepticism. Apathy, my apologies. Okay, so instead of antipathy, apathy. Yeah, I think what happens a lot of times is that antipathy, the hatred or the anger, can turn into apathy. Like if we get overwhelmed too much with anger, or too much with frustration, or too much with sadness and pain, that we just start to numb ourselves a lot. And I think a lot of the apathy is just numbing. It's getting to the point where we're like, what's the point? Let's just kind of give up. I see it politically, where people are like, what's the point in voting? Or, if Trump wins the election, I'm just not going to pay attention to politics ever again. Oh, okay. It's just that overwhelm of emotion. So in relationships, yeah, I think a lot of us are numbed off and quite apathetic towards others. I can't tell you how many people I meet when I say I talk about emotions for a living, and they go, oh, I don't express my feelings very well. I'm like, yeah, most of us don't. I think in general, culturally, we've been kind of pushed towards emotional apathy. This idea of just being numb and not expressing how we're feeling, trying to be kind of cool and level-headed. There's an author, Anna Wierzbicka, who talks about emotion across cultures. And she says, in like Anglo culture, there's this, which I think a lot of American culture has subsumed. Obviously, we have many different cultures interacting, but I think American culture has taken on a lot of these characteristics. Is we call it being upset. Upset often means not being calm and level-headed. You can even look in some other cultures and offshoots of Buddhism. I think in itself is about trying to let all the emotions happen, experience all the emotions, watch them as they come through, feel them, label them, and let them pass. Whereas sometimes the culture around some of these practices can be like, no, you have to stay calm 100% of the time. If you get angry, it's bad. If you get too excited, it's bad. And so there's sometimes cultural pressures to maintain certain emotions and numb the other emotions. So in terms of dating and relationships, how often do I see this? Oh, a lot. And I don't think it's blocked emotionally in everything, but like certain emotions can be really blocked. And so some people may be fine expressing excitement or joy, but really not express anger. Like anger gets bottled up and stuffed down. You know, it's the person who puts on a smile all the time. It's like, I don't know if this person is happy all the time. They got to be pissed off about something. And then sometimes we'll do things to poke their buttons just to make sure, you know, like to see if they actually get angry. What else in terms of romantic relationships? I think a lot of times we don't open up and share how we're feeling because we're really, really scared that the person will leave us. That we're going to open up and we're going to expose, and the person's going to find something that they don't like, and then they're going to leave. It could be even, it doesn't even have to be a negative thing. It could be a dream. You know, we don't want to share our dreams with people sometimes because we're afraid that they're going to laugh and be like, oh, you're so stupid. Why would you even dream that? Or you think you're going to be able to do that? Or sometimes worse, they'll just not seem interested. Right? So we open up and share something we're so excited about and something we've been dreaming to do our whole lives, and the person just doesn't. They just kind of turn their head, or worse, they look at their phone. Right? Oh, and they just kind of drift off. So I've seen it a lot in relationships, and one of the challenges I've personally had in romantic relationships is that as I get better at opening up emotionally, so as you know, kind of going from apathy to more empathy or whatever language you want to use, as I start opening my heart and expressing my emotions more, it's hard for me to only do that with the person I'm in a relationship with. It's me changing my communication patterns, and it's not just with that person, but many relationships in this country, and I think around the world, say that you're only supposed to be emotionally open with the person in your relationship and not with other people. And so that's something I've struggled with. And I wonder if there are other people who've struggled with that as well, in that as we open up, we're not allowed to open up to other people. And so it's this, it's kind of a paradox, I guess. I don't know if that answered the question at all. Sometimes it feels like I'm rambling in circles, but sometimes it feels like I strike gold on some things. Any other questions or comments on that? Typically when we ask questions, a lot of times it's coming from an experience that we've had my question back to you would be, have you come across this in dating and relationships? Either from the person you're interacting with or from yourself. I think often it's easier to recognize that the other person is being emotionally guarded or kind of distant. But I think it's sometimes harder for us to recognize that we are being emotionally guarded or distant. Yeah, it's just... Okay, thank you. You did answer the question. Okay, cool. Thanks for asking. I think so many of us are emotionally closed on many ways, because a lot of our culture tells us to be that way. I mean, in romantic relationships, there's a lot of pressure to not get angry at each other, or to feel certain emotions towards each other, but also to not feel certain emotions towards other people, or to not express them. But also in professional culture, in family culture, in public culture, there are a lot of things that we're not supposed to feel. Okay. Especially in dating, people have confirmation bias because deep inside they struggle with, I don't want this person to know I am really excited about them, so I'm going to play aloof, or there's something that they're hiding that will disqualify them from it taking it further because no one is that good, or this person is too good for me, so I need to knock them down a few pegs to make them feel like I'm worthy. And the worst ones, I am only going to tell this person what ... The challenge of doing I can speak faster than most people can type. I imagine it's the same way for most of us. So I will not sure how to handle the maybe I should speak more while I wait for the question to fully come in, or the comment. Yeah, I think a lot of times we play aloof because we're afraid that if we're excited about them and they might get scared off, oh no, we're gonna get really excited and they'll be not excited as well, and then we're gonna come off as desperate or eager, and they're gonna feel disgusted sometimes and run away from us. Or worse, sometimes they'll feel disgusted, run away from us, and tell other people how eager we are and how desperate we are. And I think that can really hurt too. And one of the worst ones, I'm going to tell this person what I think they want to hear. Ha! That is most of our lives, I believe. We tell this person what we think they want to hear, because I think a lot of times we prioritize how they're feeling or how we think they're feeling over how we are actually feeling. And we can get very certain on how they're feeling. So I tell this person what I think they want to hear. So for example, if I like the vacation one because I think it can really hit home. I think there's a lot of disagreement on vacation ideas. So, okay, like if I want to go on vacation where I just relax and do nothing, and, maybe I've been working a lot and I'm exhausted and my body needs to recover. And I know that the person I'm dating really wants to go on vacation and wants to do a lot of sightseeing and maybe go up and hiking and a lot of very active stuff. I may tell them that I also want to do that when I don't, because I don't want them to get angry at me and to not want to go on vacation, because I think if I tell them that I want to relax, they will want to, they'll get angry and get frustrated. But it's assuming that the person will get angry. I am certain that if I tell this person this, they are going to feel angry, and therefore I'm not going to tell them this. But it's not true. There's a chance that they'll feel angry. Maybe it's a 95% chance they'll feel angry. But there's also a 5% chance or more that they may actually want to rest and relax as well. That they may be like, oh, good, fine. I just felt everyone I've dated before always wanted me to go hiking and be really active, but I've actually wanted to just relax too. Wait, what? Yeah, we don't know these things often because we don't ask these questions and we don't share what we actually want. And sometimes that rejection hurts so much. We do share what we want, and then the person says, ew, no, especially with the disgust, ew, no, why would you want that? It can hurt so much. But when we don't share it, we can really, really build up a lot of resentment towards ourselves, because we're prioritizing how they're feeling over our emotions, and our body starts to kind of fight back. Hey, you're not listening to me. Hey, you're not paying attention to me. You're just paying attention to them. I need attention. I need love too. I like the comment about this person is too good for me, so I need to knock them down a few pegs to make them feel like I'm worthy. Again, the fear of like, oh no, this person will realize that they are um, they are better than I am and will leave. Like, like, oh, I've tricked them. They don't realize how bad I am. And so once they realize it, they're going to leave and I'm going to be left alone and nobody will ever want to be with me. A lot of that catastrophizing, like, oh, I'll never find anyone else. Like, what? Really? Because everyone will figure out that I'm just an imposter, I'm a sham, and that I have all these. But it reminds me of what somebody said once, that, we see our full tape and all the errors and we only see the highlight reels of other people. And so a lot of times we don't see what they're struggling with. And they're probably going through the exact same thing. Like, oh, I don't want to show this part of my body or this part of my history or this part of my belief system, because if I do, this person is going to say, oh God, what was I doing with you? And leave and maybe even humiliate us publicly. Because nowadays, a lot of our lives are public. And so there's a whole other element to it of, oh, they're going to tell other people about this shameful part of my body, or this thing that I feel really ashamed about. Oh, oh man, I don't want anyone to know that. So that's the hard part in opening up, is that, people may react in a way that hurts us even more. One of the things that I've learned in running classes, in dealing with rejection and guilt tripping and some of these emotional attacks, is that if we open up vulnerably, and even if the other person responds very kindly, it can hurt so much because we're vulnerable. It makes us vulnerable, and opening up and saying it out loud sometimes just hurts itself. And so we can be so sensitive to how the other person responds, even if the other person responds kindly. And so I think, a lot of us are afraid to say this to other people in our lives, especially the people who are really close to us, because we're often very afraid to even say these things to ourselves, to admit to ourselves that we feel ashamed about this, or we feel scared about this, or we feel angry about this, or we feel sad about this, or even hopeful for this. Because sometimes we'll have that emotional reaction to ourselves. Like maybe I'll feel angry that I haven't exercised more. But then I'll like come in and say, oh, but it's not good to feel angry at oneself. And then I'll feel angry at feeling angry at myself. And I'll get stuck. Or maybe again, it's coming into like the phobias. Like I'll feel afraid of a spider. And then I will feel angry at myself for feeling afraid, because what kind of man am I if I feel afraid of a spider? And so all these voices and stories will come into my mind and make me have a reaction to an emotional reaction to the emotion that I'm feeling. And so I think sometimes it's hard enough just to say these things to ourselves, but definitely to other people. Yeah, there's something that they're hiding that will disqualify them from taking it further because no one is that good. And that's just suspicion that like, wait, this is too good to be true. I'm feeling good and I'm not supposed to feel good, right? I feel hopeful and I'm not supposed to feel hopeful because in the past, when I felt hopeful, somebody screwed me over. And so this is too good to be true. What would be your biggest hopes and fears about bringing a child into the world or adopting progeny? Ha! Oh! Me personally, biggest hope and fears. I'll start with fears. I like to start with the negative emotions first. Biggest fears would be that I would want to... Gosh, I'm afraid to even say how afraid I am. What came to my mind is, I'm afraid to say this because I think it instills fear in a lot of people. I'm afraid that I would want to run away, that I wouldn't want to stay and nurture the child for 18 years plus. I think what I fear is that ownership, or that kind of cultivation, the gardener kind of mentality, the stewardship, maybe in a way, the lifelong commitment to that, because I haven't committed to anything lifelong that I would uh, garden or take care of or maintain. So I think that really scares me. What else scares me? I think, yeah, I think that's the main one. I think, fears of having a child with someone that uh, we want to go in different directions, and having you know, the family maybe be torn apart in some ways. I think I have fear of that. I think the biggest one, though, is me uh, committing to something for a life. I think that's a very hard decision for me to make, and fearing that. Uh, wow, I'm really nervous right now. Oh, that's scary to say in general, but especially on the internet. Um, let's go to hopes. Maybe that'll help. Hope that I could be really unconditionally loving towards a child, and that I can watch a child grow, and that I could actually be there and have kind of a very loving relationship for a child. I think I love being a trainer and teaching, and I think with a child, there's so much that we can train them in and teach them in, and also learn from. I love to learn. And so I think having a child could be such a learning experience. Like, wow, look at how a human interacts with the world. Like, this is a human before uh, too much culture has been placed on the child. Like, oh, this is how they walk. This is how they sit down. This is how they stand up. This is how they roll over. Like, those are very natural movements. Oh, cool. Oh, watch the child explore. I think it's an excuse to be a child again, and the hopes to kind of go down and be there with them. I have a friend, when he had I think his child was like 2 years old, and they were walking through the park, and he found a sewer grate, and the kid was just dropping stones and listening to them like kerplunk when they hit the water. And he's like, my friend said, we did this for like 2 hours. He said, I loved it. I had an excuse to just be with the kid and kind of meditate and drop stones into a sewer. And so I think that's some of the hopes. I think the fears is that another fear is that I will feel a lot of pressure for me to do it on my own, and maybe the person I'm with won't let other people help raise the child, or I will feel afraid that other people will teach the child the wrong things. So my fear of not trusting other people with the child, but also my fear that I would not be there all the time, or be there enough for the child. I think it's probably the combination, right? I think those kind of play back and forth, that I'm afraid I won't be there enough, but if I am not there because I'm traveling for work or I'm doing something like this, that I'm afraid that I won't trust the people who are there. Just being real. What about you? What are some of your biggest hope and fears about bringing a child into the world or adopting? Gosh. I think just on that line, just coming back to the previous point in conversation, is that I think some of us are really afraid to say these things because it can trigger certain things in other people. Like, for example, me saying that right there, I was afraid to say how afraid I was, because there may be a woman out there who goes, well, he's just going to abandon me, and somebody abandoned me in the past. There's no way I'm going to have any type of relationship with this guy. And so I'm afraid of asking that or saying that, because I think sometimes when we say things, other people can latch onto them very tightly. And so we're afraid to say it again, that the person is going to leave us or abandon us because of something that we're feeling and we're not even trying to feel. Biggest fears, I imagine, a cycle of poverty, not being successful enough to have them live with massive scarcity and displacement as I did. Yeah, we want our kids to be in a better situation than we are. And so fear that we won't be enough to help them, fear that we're not going to help them feel good and feel strong and feel hopeful and have the things in life that could and enable them to do that. Yeah, it's oh. What about hopes? I think most of us have no idea what to do as parents, and most of us just pretend we do. I think because our parents seemed as if they knew what they were doing, or they thought they knew what they were doing. Or maybe some parents didn't seem as if they knew. I don't know. At least in my experience, my parents seemed like they knew what they were doing. But I think a lot of it is just going with the flow and figuring stuff out as they go. And I think it's the same for us. I don't know. I love this. Kalima says, I hope that they are able to bring their light into the world with the courage that I did. Hey, I think one of the things that we can do as parents is to be the example for the kids. Like we, as kids, we look up to our parents to learn almost everything. We learn how to speak from them. We learn how to move like them. We learn postural things from them. We learn table manners. We learn so many different ways of interacting with the world from them. And so the fact that you're, let me see, bringing the light into the world with the courage that I did, the fact that you're having the courage to do that, the fact that you're having the courage to still do that, I think can set the example for them. And they mimic. They'll mimic and do a lot of the same things you do. It's the whole like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm sounding like my mother or my father. Yeah, it's because we learned from them. Right? That's been one of the challenging things, I think, of being home during the pandemic with my parents for so long, is just realizing that we speak so much the same. Like, I can finish many of their sentences. I know what they're going to say. Like, I know which story they're going to tell. Even if it's a new story, I kind of know how it's going to go because I've been hearing these things my whole life. And so I think we have a lot of fears that we're not going to be enough, or we're not going to do enough, or we're not going to contribute enough. And I have fears on these conversations as well. Oh, am I just rambling and people aren't getting things? But at the same time, I think we can impact people a lot more than we imagine we do, and in a positive way. So the fact that, Kalima, you're saying that you hope that they're going to bring light into the world with the courage that you did. You've brought light into my world with the courage that you have. Like, I remember being back in Oakland, and I think the first time I met you was at a startup hackathon that you started, that you ran in Oakland when I was brand new in Oakland, California. And it was, I still reflect on that time as one of the best times I had out there. And I learned a lot. So I think I've learned a lot from you. I've been inspired by you. And I continue to be. So I was super grateful when I saw that you commented on here and that you were asking questions. I was like, yes, what, he's paying attention? Oh man, this is amazing. It's those little things, it's little things in life where, yeah, I don't know. So I'm excited for you, man. I don't know where you are in your stage of life, But if that means a child is coming into your life in some way, shape, or form, I am stoked. And I'm really happy and excited for that child. And if there's not a child coming into your life, I'm still excited because I'm just happy that you're doing what you're doing and you're being how you're being. Yeah. I'm going to end this call in just a few minutes here. And just want to say I'm really grateful for doing this, for Kalima, my friend, joining and asking some questions and contributing some comments throughout the show. And to realize that, listen, we're all going through stuff in life. Most of us are just not saying it. We all have hopes and dreams and fears and terrors and nightmares and pains and struggles and resentments and things like this. We all have so much going on in our lives, and we just, when somebody asks us how we're doing, we say, fine, good. I don't want that answer. I want the long answer. Don't give me the too long didn't read answer of how are you. I want the full answer. So thank you for joining in. Thank you, Kalima. I love you too, man. And excited to keep doing this. And see you tomorrow at 1:00. All right. Bye, y'all.